Africa's youth population is rapidly growing and expected to double to over 830 million by 2050. The continent is the youngest on the planet, but of the 420 million people aged 15 to 35, 1/3 are unemployed, another third is in precarious employment, and only 1 in 6 is in paid work. That's put a renewed focus on African universities. Half of the new entrants into the global workforce over the next decade will come from sub-Saharan Africa, and that's leading to growing concern that failure to invest in and support the continent's youth will not only have a profound impact on economies here in Africa, but also on the global economy. Well, for more on this, we can speak to Adetomi Soyinka. She's the British Council Regional Director for Higher Education Programs covering Sub-Saharan Africa, and she joins me live from Washington. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. Just briefly, tell us about the big challenge that Africa faces with its youth population as you see it.
Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here today. You've already articulated it so well with your opening statement. I mean, when you think about all the statistics and data coming out of Africa, we could either think, oh my goodness, this is a horrible, horrible emergency, or this is an opportunity for us to make a massive difference. The biggest challenge we have and the biggest opportunity we have is the youth demographic. So we have this growing youth population. We have, unfortunately, a dearth of skills, knowledge, and expertise to access the jobs that are available in today's market, because, unfortunately, our institutions and our universities are not preparing young people to access the jobs that are available in today's market. So you have what we find and what we found happening not just in Nigeria, but across the continent, a situation where young people are developing in very innovative ways, alternatives to sort of sustain themselves. So they're looking for alternative ways for developing sustainable livelihoods, right? So what I would like to term this sort of side hustle culture seems to be developing, where young people in a very innovative and resilient manner are developing, these businesses and hustles on the side, which unfortunately they're not being deliberately supported by the processes and systems we have in place to actually build properly. So through this program, this is what we're trying to do. If universities are not necessarily responding to the greatest needs of their communities, which is supporting young people to be more successful in future, ensuring they have the skills needed to, either access jobs in the formal pathway or build and create jobs in the informal pathway, then what are universities doing? So that's what we are trying to do through these programs. Ensure that universities have the capability to support young people, ensure that young people, after being on this program, are appropriately positioned, they have the skills, knowledge, and expertise, and they can build, sustainable livelihoods, whether they decide to go into the corporate environment or whether they decide that they want to become job creators. At the end of the day, what we want is a community that has, young people who are skilled, young people who are knowledgeable, and young people who are successful and can drive the development of economies and prosperous communities. Thanks.
Well, that's very interesting. You've kind of touched on what I was going to ask you next, but perhaps you could expand on it and tell us about that British Council program that you were talking about and how it works and how it aims to drive better outcomes for graduates.
Okay. All right. Happy to do that. So what we've essentially done is we've created a community of universities sitting in Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, and Kenya, and the UK. And we've built partnerships. We've put them together to build partnerships. And those partnerships essentially are to foster a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship within universities across sub-Saharan Africa. Now, we're also conscious of the fact that obviously the conversations that are happening in different countries within sub-Saharan Africa will be different because there's varied levels of development and varied levels of support that are available. But our program takes that into account. Our program also hopes to be, or has built a community whereby, universities, not just in the UK and sub-Saharan Africa, can learn from one another. We've created a community where, universities in the South, so universities across sub-Saharan Africa can learn from one another, because we believe it is critical that the solutions that we build are built by us. That's universities across the African continent need to learn from one another and build their own solutions. So that's the program in a nutshell. So a partnership program which is based on learning, based on the exchange of knowledge, based on community rather than, so it's based on community spirit rather than competition. So there's a lot of knowledge and knowledge exchange that happens within the project. So we've delivered 35 projects, 35 different projects across the course of the last 2 years. We've worked with over 300 academics and individuals from enterprise support organizations. We've worked with over 7,000 students to deliver this over the course of 2 years. And at the end of the day, what we have seen happen is not what we're hoping will happen anymore. What we've seen happen is transformation within institutions and systems where, institution systems have changed, have progressed, have learned from institutions and universities have learned from one another and have made changes within their own system, and growth has occurred.
Well, it all sounds jolly interesting. And what do you need to do now to take this program forward? I mean, presumably you need more partnerships, more collaborations, that sort of thing.
Yes, definitely, Charles. I think that the key thing here for us is, as you have said during your intro, the scale of the need is quite significant across the continent. So delivering this across 4 countries is not where we want to be, essentially. For us to drive impact at scale, achieve impact at scale, and ensure that, for the opportunities that are going to be available in the next decade for young people, that we are appropriately positioned to take those forward, then we need to be able to scale this across several different locations. So partnership, yes, to scale across, several different locations across sub-Saharan Africa is what we're looking at. We want to share the knowledge. We've achieved so much over the last 2 years. We've learned a lot. So we're looking to scale that knowledge and share it. But more importantly, we want to scale the impact that this program has had across those 4 locations. So yes, partnerships, scaling, partnerships for learning, that sort of thing. Those are the sort of things that are critical for us at this stage. Yes.
Well, we want to commend you for what you've done so far, and hopefully there are lots of people with whom you can get into partnerships with who are listening. And that is Adetomi Soyinka, who's the British Council Regional Director for Higher Education Programs covering Sub-Saharan Africa. And she was talking to me there from Washington.